Hello everyone, welcome to episode 98 of Show Viewers. Today we'll be going over season 1 of Solo Leveling. Now to begin the plot, I introduce Sun Jinwoo, who is an E-rank hunter, a rank hunter. So the Hunter Association is a group of humans who go through portals which arose 10 years ago after the outbreak of the portals and magical power. And when you enter a portal, there's just monsters and there's ultimately usually a boss in them. And you can gain rewards, and there are two main types of resources in there. You have mana crystals and essence crystals. Now, essence crystals are acquired by killing monsters, and mana crystals are mined, with essence crystals being more valuable than mana crystals. But yeah, so the Hunter Association is sent into these gates to quell the monsters so they don't escape out into the actual world. And the Hunter Association is divided into 6 ranks. You have E rank, which is the lowest, and you have D, C, B, A, and then S, which is the highest. Now, Sun Jinwoo is an E-rank hunter. He is actually the least powerful hunter out of all of them. And we see as the episode kind of starts off with him going into a dungeon where we see as, we're also introduced to his mother, who has been put into a coma due to mana overexposure. And we know that he has a sister by the name of Jinha. It's Jinah, yeah, Jinah. And so we see this, and ultimately he ends up going into this dungeon where he has some couple of companions. One of them predominantly is Mr. Song and Junhee. And we see as he goes in, ultimately everything's going fine. They're fighting. He's got damaged a little bit. And ultimately they end up in this room where there's a godlike statue. This statue ultimately ends up starts to kill people, and it has a list of commandments beneath it. And Jinwoo ends up noticing these commandments and ultimately ends up telling the people to follow them. When following them, the godlike statue stops killing them. And this is quite out of character for a type of dungeon that they're in, because they're in a low-rank dungeon. And in low-rank dungeons, you barely have one-shot enemies. He said, I believe Mr. Song comments on how most of the time it has to be above C rank to have one-shot enemies. But yeah, so we see this, and ultimately some more people start dying. They start running away, start freaking out when they're told to follow the commandments, so they end up dying. But ultimately it comes down to the line where they have to only release a select few people. And some of them start getting away. We see as Junhee is one of the earlier ones to get out because she's been traumatized and she can't move or anything. And she's been told to take care of Jinwoo, but Jinwoo can't do anything either. And since Junhee is traumatized and he can't do anything because he's injured, he lost, I believe, a leg, yeah. And ultimately, everyone ends up getting out except for Jinwoo, and Jinwoo is left with this big statue who's about to kill him. But before he dies, or before he gets killed, we see as a menu flash up before his eyes, and it says, "Do you accept this contract? If not, your heart will stop in 0.2 seconds." Ultimately, he ends up clicking yes, and we see as everything goes black, like the end of I believe it was the first or second episode. And after this, we see then as he wakes up in the hospital, his leg is no longer missing, and he is relatively good to have been crushed to death. Yeah, so we see this, and the menu pops back up in front of him. He's trying to figure out. His sister Gina ends up coming into the room, and he asks her if she can see the menu. She cannot see the menu, and he just kind of slowly figures out what this menu is, and he learns that he has these things called daily quests now, and they're just things like, I believe that it's literally the one-man punch routine: 100 squats, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 10-kilometer run, and throughout all of this, he's like, nah, I don't think I'm going to do these yet, because I'm in the hospital. I don't think there's any punishment for it. But ultimately, there is a punishment for it. He's sent to a different realm. He's running from this big Sentishiro level bug centipede thing. And ultimately, he ends up surviving that. And then he realizes, I need to be doing my daily quest. So he gets about doing them. He gets substantially more fit, kind of training and all of that. And we see as his power actually increases from doing this. Now, it's called solo leveling because Jinwoo has what is called a reawakened ability, or a second awakening. And this is when a hunter, because at the baseline, hunters' powers, once they acquire them, are at the same for their entire lives. They can change their physical attributes through training, but they can never change their magical abilities and their abilities in a dungeon unless they have a second awakening. Well, Jinwoo had a very fortuitous second awakening because he can actually improve his magical abilities and can go even further beyond, because he goes from E rank to S rank, as we see later on in the series. Yeah, so he slowly goes about learning this. He gets more powerful and everything, and ultimately he's ready to go back into missions. So first we see as him and this other new kid who's kind of a nepo baby by the name of Junho. He's not like a nepo baby in the bad sense. He has a lot of money because his parents had a lot of money, because his father is the owner of a construction corporation. And we see as Jinwoo, Jinho, and this other group of individuals who are well known for partying together, partying as in going in dungeons, not woo, partying, getting drunk and all that. Yeah, so we see this, and they ultimately end up going to this dungeon where they reach a big, spider final boss. And during this, we see as Jinwoo and Jinho are left for dead because the goal of the party had been to go in there, run away, and let them distract them so that they could let the Jinho and Jinwoo distract the boss so they could take all the crystals and leave them for dead. So they end up leaving them for dead and leaving the gate for the time being. But ultimately, we see as Jinwoo and Jinho are very powerful, and well, not Jinho, but Jinwoo has become very powerful, and he's able actually to defeat the boss. Now, this is because he had also been doing some solo leveling in the prior instances where he was like training and all that. He went through a couple of smaller dungeons and fought some pretty powerful beings, and ultimately became quite a bit stronger. But yeah, so he ends up beating this boss, and they end up coming back in, and Jinwoo confronts them and actually ends up killing these people. This is the first time Jinwoo kills humans. But yeah, so he ends up killing these people, and him and Jinho end up escaping, and we see a kind of a brief interaction afterwards where Jinho reveals that he's wanting to create his family is wanting to create a guild, essentially, of hunters to establish kind of almost monopoly and just better practices over the, I guess, concept of raiding dungeons, because the Hunter Association and the guilds that are already established kind of already have like control over that market, and they want to send in a newcomer so they can make a lot of money off of it through essentially lower prices. But yeah, we're not higher paying jobs and like, I don't know, higher paying jobs and just more attractive business actions. But yeah, so we see this, and ultimately Jinwoo is not interested, but Jinho is like, okay, I won't tell your secret if you go on 19 raids with me. So he ends up agreeing to this, but he's like, yo, me and you are gonna be the only ones on these raids. So we kind of see as this starts and gets going, we see as they actually go on one of their first ones, and in this they are accompanied by a hunter who is an assassin type. And we see this assassin type ends up turning on them mid like dungeon raid, and we see as Jinwoo ultimately has to fight him, and he ends up killing him, and this ends up being his second human, well, not his second human kill, but his second action of human killing, because he killed all of the party members in the other dungeon prior. And ends up escaping. Now, due to his actions in the first dungeon where he killed people, one of the people's brothers actually it was like an S rank and is very infuriated at this, so he's coming to Japan to look for Jinwoo. That doesn't really become pertinent until the second season, really. But yeah. So we see this, and also we get some more background information on like the guilds and stuff like that. We see as Choi, who is the leader of a guild, who is like considered the ultimate weapon of hunters. He is a fire mage, a fire wielder or a fire mage. I haven't seen his ability yet since it's not shown, but he has a plan to go back to an island called Jeju Island, which was actually shown in like the first episode of the series. And he wants to go back here because they lost a lot of people there, and he does not want it to be a failure. He does not want it to be a blemish on his record. So he wants to go back and finish up what was done. Sorry about the clicking. I was missing my AirPods. But yeah, so we see this, and that's kind of just like a side thing. Ultimately, he ends up leaving around the end of the season. What we see is Jinwoo is slowly becoming more and more adept with his powers. And we see as he ends up traveling about and learning that he can actually exceed his daily goal task. So once he does this, he doubles all of them, and he receives a blessed gift. And this gift ends up being a key. So he finds the key of the gate, which is the one which the key is using. I don't know why. I was having trouble wording that for some reason. But yeah, so he ends up using this, and he ends up going to essentially a S-ranked dungeon, where he ends up fighting this Cerberus-like beast. And he has a tough time against it, but due to his recovery abilities, because every time Jinwoo levels up, he recovers, and each time he finishes a fight, he usually recovers due to the gift system and reward system with his power. And we see this, and he ends up fighting Cerberus, like I said, has a rough time, but ultimately he ends up beating him, and this leads to him learning of the Elixir of Life, which is an elixir which can essentially heal his mother from her mana overexposure if he collects these 3 ingredients, which he needs to collect from this gate that she is in. Yeah, so he learns about that, and then we see as he goes on another trip in which he is just kind of grinding and going back. I believe it's called a job change quest. He goes on a job change quest, and he ends up progressing through it. He's doing pretty well. He's fighting kind of easy level bosses, but ultimately he ends up getting to this big final boss called Igris the Blood Red. Now, this fight was sick. I loved the Igris fight. And we see as it kind of goes about, and Jinwoo has quite a difficult time. Ultimately, though, he realizes that Igris is a man of honor, so he puts down his weapon. He's like, yo, let's go fisticuff. Let's get pugilistic in this, John. And they ultimately end up fighting, and Jinwoo ends up beating him. Now, he would not have won, as he mentions later on in Season 2, if they had kept going with their sword, but he ultimately did end up winning. And during this, we see as Jinwoo gets all of his words, and he ultimately gets the ability to level up, or not level up, but change his job. And in this, he ends up changing to the position of a necromancer. He learns necromancy abilities and can now use the term arise to resurrect any fallen enemies which he kills. And he goes and he tries to do this on Igris. Now, the first 2 times he tried this, he fails, and he has 3 tries in total. But ultimately, on the last try, he ends up speaking to Igris about how there's no point in him waiting for the king to return to the throne which he was defending, and instead he should go with a powerful person such as Jinwoo to help fulfill his duty actively. And this ultimately ends up convincing Igris, and he ends up joining Jinwoo's legion. So the season kind of ends with us having Jinwoo acquire this new ability and just overall get absurdly more powerful, since now he has legions of, valiant assistants after killing all the knights in that dungeon, and now he has Igris as well, so he has a very powerful necromantic ability. I don't know if necromantic is the term. But yeah, like I said, I already told you about the Jeju Island stuff, so that's kind of all the plot of season 1 of Solo Leveling. Now, I really didn't know what the main point was until later on, but the main point is for Jinwoo to acquire enough money so that he can help heal his mother. Well, not acquire enough money, but acquire the ingredients so he can heal his mother, and acquire enough money to help his sister through her studies, since she is planning on being a doctor. Yeah, this season, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I love, especially when Jinwoo would kill people or start going kind of wild, and his voice acting would get so good. That's honestly one of the highest highs in it, and especially the animation. Everyone knows Solo Leveling animation is great. It's done by A1 Studios, which I don't know of any other shows they do, but they do great on this. So we see that, and I don't know why we see that, but we do see very good animation. Now, the reason why I watched Solo Leveling, I didn't believe the person who recommended it to me, but they said, "Yo, bro, it's better than Naruto." Keep in mind, bro has only watched Naruto, the complete Naruto series, besides Boruto, and Solo Leveling. He's like, "Yeah, bro, Solo Leveling's better for real." I had to take a moment of silence there because that was not true. It is really good. That's not to undermine, but Naruto is literally one of the best pieces of anime in my opinion. It has more time. It has more world building. It just overall is just a better series in my opinion. But Solo Leveling is not bad. I really like Solo Leveling. It's great. It's a good little show. It's got a good simple concept, and it's nothing wild. It's just good storytelling, simple oh my gosh, concept, holy smokes. And it's just overall a good anime. It's got good, like I said, good storytelling, good voice acting, and good action, and good animation too. But yeah, so it's really good, and I'm enjoying season 2 so far. I just like it, and like I said, it's nothing great. It's not blow your socks off best anime in the world. It's just really solid. It's a really good anime, and I would recommend it to anyone to watch it because, like I said, it is valuable, and like I said, nothing absurd, but it is still really enjoyable. That's all I really have to say about season 1 of Solo Leveling. I will be getting one out on season 2 pretty shortly because I've been blowing through it. But yeah, that's also all I really have for episode 98 of Show Review. So thank you very much for watching.